Watch him throw the ball, we gon' pick it off. You gon' let him hit the hole or you gon' cut it off. You gon' play through fourth and long or you gon' punt it off. Your defenders heavy hitters, put your pads in. Don't be looking for the ref to throw no flags in. Keep the helmet on, keep the cleats tight. You the type to want to win by any means, right? You should look alive. This is Trap or Die.
Yes, sir. Welcome back to another episode of Trap or Die Podcast, man. I'm your host of the Trap or Die Podcast, Mo. You know who I am, AJ Andres. Matter of fact, AJ's in the backstage right now, so I'm gonna check in with him, see if he good. But while we wait, before we talk about the good stuff, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so. If you're on the audio side, man, as always, we do appreciate your support. Appreciate y'all tapping in every week. I see y'all in the comments too, man. Y'all got in here early. Hawk got in here. Rich got in here too. Oh, I got burp. Damn. But yeah, audio side, man. If you haven't done so already, give us a rating and review. We definitely appreciate that. It's free to show your support, man. Just let the people know you messing with the show. All right, so I'm assuming that AJ is ready. Jay Tyler just checking in too. What's up? What's up, big dog? Let's go ahead and get AJ in here. Get a little chat going. Boom, boom. Okay, Dakota, I'm gonna need you to relax, man. We got some Chase Young to talk about. Chase Young and Montez Sweat got traded today, bro. Oh, okay. So we got Dre in here too. Perfect timing. The whole gang in here, man. We here now. What's going on with you, Dre? How you feeling, big dog?
Shit, man, I'm feeling good, man. I feel like we got a new franchise we looking forward to. These trades, you know what I'm saying? This is new. I was thinking this early. I said, man, this might be the first time I can remember Washington being real sellers at the deadline. This is different.
Yeah, we haven't been selling. I don't remember. Trying to think, like the only time I ever even really remember like serious trade action was the year that they bought somebody. They got Clinton Dix in 2018 or 2017. One of them Jones. Matter of fact, it was 18 because we was like 5-2 or something like that, and we thought that was going to make some shake. And even
he played all of like 8 games, 7 games for us. He didn't even last after that season. So
came back with Chicago the next year, bro. When Jay Gruden was getting before the year he got fired. Anyway, that's not what we're here for. AJ, how you feeling, big dog? You here?
Yeah, I'm here, man. I'm just trying to transition to my laptop. But yeah, I'm here, man. It's been a day. Didn't think some of these moves are gonna take place, but you know, it all happened. And you know, we get to chop it up and discuss what took place today. As you guys just mentioned, it's an unusual situation for the organization to be in. You really don't see them being sellers ever around the trade deadline. So to move with some major assets, it's going to be a hell of a conversation.
Yeah, man. Let's go ahead and get right into it. I guess we can go in the chronological order of events and kind of just go with Montez first. Obviously, if you haven't been aware of things, Montez Sweat and Chase Young were both traded today. That was all the moves that Washington had, but they were major moves. But Montez Sweat was the first one off the board. Initially, I think we knew about a couple teams, mainly from the NFC South, that was being reported. Atlanta Falcons was the heavy favorite, I guess, if in terms of like who Montez would go to. And then ultimately ended up being a team from the NFC North that ends up taking Montez for a second. I think that the whole pitch was there was an idea that, you know, people were offering thirds, but a conditional second based on if he signs or whatever. Before that even happened, man, like everything was so eerie, right? And we're going to get to the Chase Young side too, because I got thoughts on how that even went down. But Ron Rivera made his comments, what's today? Tuesday, yesterday, about like we're not going to talk about the trade deadline because we'll have plenty of talk about next time I talk to you all, right? And that leaves speculation, right? That leaves a window of trying to figure out what exactly did he mean by that, right? Ambiguity, I think, is the word. And then you have Montez Sweat and Chase Young both in the locker rooms, whether it's post game or practice, like over the last couple of weeks, opportunities where you're talking about saying your goodbyes. And if like now that the moves are made, when you heard Montez Sweat talk initially about this stuff, he talked in the past tense. And we just assumed that, that was just something where, he's just talking, right? Like a lot of people didn't think nothing of it at the time, but he's talking in past tense already. So if like we believed what we saw on face value, we knew that Montez Sweat was out the door. We knew that Ron Rivera was already telling us that something was going to happen. It's just a matter of when. And now we get the news with Montez Sweat first. I think the second is as big as or as best as you can get with this with the opportunity at hand. I don't know who signaled this. AJ, you even raised the question like who signaled this. I would imagine with these two guys going, like Montez Sweat is the best opportunity that you have to get the most capital or the biggest capital. And I think for it to be an early second round pick projected, you can't really sit here if you're in the shoes of Ron Rivera and say, yeah, I don't trust you to make this deal. Like that's a deal you take. And I think that's as good as it gets, regardless if he's about to get fired down the line or if somebody else was to get that deal. Like that's as good as it's going to get probably for Montez Sweat. And I would take that 9 times out of 10. I would take that. What do you all think about the Montez Sweat situation?
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100% about Montez Sweat. And it's funny because we had this conversation the last couple of weeks where I was on the fence about I don't want these guys making moves for the future if they're not going to be here. But it actually, over the last coming days, I'm starting to realize, and I said this on Twitter earlier too, Josh Harris, I think he gave Ron Rivera a checkout sheet. Basically, hey, bro, we're going to have a mutually parting of the ways at the end of the season, but I'm going to need you to complete these tasks before you go. And we're going to oversee these tasks to make sure they're approved. I mean, that's just me speculating, but it just makes a lot of sense because you got to think that Ron Rivera, it wasn't in his best interest to trade a guy like Montez Sweat. I mean, maybe Chase Young because, you're starting to see the reports that, there was no love lost there between Chase and the organization. But, they love Montez Sweat. And I got a feeling, that Ron feels like if he's going to keep his job, he needs to win. And a guy like Montez Sweat helps him win. So you have to believe that these moves are coming from the top. You have to think that, I don't know who's evaluating, who's signing off on it at the end of the day. I don't know if the guy, what's his name, Eugene Shin, that they just hired last week. Maybe his analytics said, hey, the way you constructed this D-line, the resources aren't worth it going forward for the future. We can get assets now. I mean, so that had to factor into it. But again, I didn't think we would get a second round pick. I'm saying all of this to say that this is actually ideal and it exceeded my expectations. Like, I mean, this is what I would have wanted, but I didn't expect it, especially with Montez needing a deal coming after the season. I thought maybe we would have probably got a third. Chase's compensation surprised me a little bit. I thought maybe they would be in the same range. But again, with the Montez compensation, I couldn't be happier, man, because now you have so much flexibility. I mean, I said this on Twitter earlier. I know a lot of people, well, some people didn't like it. Some people agreed, but, depends on this makes the season much more easier to endure, especially with Sam Howell. Now the season really is all about Sam Howell going forward in his development. It's about that. Now, if Sam is putting up, more performances like Sunday, then look at all the draft capital you're giving a new GM coming in to say, hey, I can build this team around him. We can go out and get the offensive lineman we need. You'll have so much flexibility. Or if Sam continues the up and down thing, the new GM comes in, he doesn't like Sam Howell, then you have the flexibility and the assets now to kind of go up and get your guy in the draft. You can go get your quarterback now, because this is what the teams like Philadelphia do. They accumulate the draft picks. I know some people, even with the Chase compensation, a lot of people didn't like the third, but that's another attractive asset, even though it's a top 100 pick, more so at the bottom of the 100, but it's another attractive asset in case you do have to move up and go get a guy. So, I mean, I couldn't be mad at all with the Montez compensation, man. I thought that was, like you said, Maul, that was as good as you were going to do for him.
Yeah, man. I think today was pretty intriguing, man. You lose two pass rushers that are young, and they have that youth on their side, and they put up productive numbers in the games that they've been able to play. I mean, even Monday we seen Rashawn Gary out of the Packers. He got a new deal, giving him over $100 million, and I want to say close to probably 40. I don't know. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but like 40 guaranteed. Even those type of opportunities could have pushed this to happen sooner, because you're using the numbers, the analytics behind it to gauge what the true market value of said players could be. When you have two pass rushers in their prime, or haven't even really entered their prime, entering the market, you're looking at a lot of money that you have to spend in order to try to keep these two guys together, or either one of them together. Not one of them together, or at least one of them to, go alongside Payne and Allen and whatever else you plan on doing defensively. Montez Sweat for a second-round pick, that's a high second with the Chicago Bears. You got to kind of love that value that you got in return. Also, still kind of makes you wonder, hey, Chicago Bears has two first-round picks. Could you not have maybe squeezed out one of those by including somebody else, or maybe even adding some of your picks? That's just something that you just wonder.
Let's not get greedy, AJ.
I mean, when I say that is because when the Bears even want to do a deal of that nature, it kind of makes you see how desperate they are for a pass rusher. So if you look at for me, like I look forward, right? So if you look at the pass rushing class for 2024, it's not really that many like talented pass rushers coming out of college next year. Like it's very limited. I don't know what the Bears are going to do with their coaching staff or even their GM, but if they were willing to part with the second, I guess cool, you could take it. I definitely would have asked for one of those first. But like you said, that could be being greedy. But I just see them as a desperate team that by all means will have to break the bank in order to keep Montez Sweat within the fold of being a Chicago Bear. With Chase Young,
pause for 1 second, because I'm adding something. You still got the floor, but this was from Ben Standig earlier on an article post Chase Young and Montez Sweat trade. Quote unquote, according to another team source, the Commanders hope to keep Sweat, but the value of the Bears offer proved to be too good. The team views the trade of Young as a potential addition by subtraction. So in relation to the Sweat comment and the compensation, it sounds like what they were getting based on this report. Sounds like what they were getting for Montez Sweat, nobody else matched. So they didn't want to kind of overstep in terms of like shutting the deal down altogether. Maybe that second was probably as good as it's going to get.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really agree with what Ben tweeted. I seen it. I feel like if Washington wanted to keep a player, or any organization truly wants to keep a guy, you'll keep that guy. You don't have to trade them. You're not forced to do so.
John Allen.
I was thinking of the other angle. I was thinking of like they were committed to move on. Like I think that's I think they were really committed in this, and they were willing to if they found like a really good offer. And I think that also kind of dives into the other aspect, because if they wanted to keep Sweat, right? Who also is pushing for this trade to happen? Like if the value is that good, but you really like the player, wouldn't you just keep the player and extend him? Somebody is also and I mean, when I say somebody, I'm speaking big, but we know is new ownership. It's the people that's going to be taking over once Ron gets the can. But it's like these people are more invested in what's going on as well now that they can really pay attention and they see how this season's going. They're more invested into what's going on as well because, look, we got to make sure that we're set for the future. And as much as we like Montez Sweat, if you're going to give us this, I don't know why you're going to do it, but I appreciate it. I'm gonna take it. That's what it seems like. So that's kind of thing. That's the angle I was looking at it from.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, they both gone, right?
Yeah.
you got a second. That's solid value if you wanted to move away from the player. With Chase, it's a compensatory pick from the 49ers that you'll be getting. So you don't really know where that'd be slotted, but more than likely it'll be at the end of the third, which is closer to a 4th round pick. You got assets. You got some draft capital. I felt like they probably should have moved even a couple more guys if they could have today. If that was the case, if we really trying to build some assets as far as draft capital wise. But now you're in a good position for a GM to possibly want to come in here. Doesn't necessarily have to be a first-time GM or whatever. Even a veteran GM would love this opportunity to have draft capital and also to have $90 million plus to play with. And full control over roster modifications and hiring process. It's just intriguing how it all played out. I'm just curious to know the details behind the scenes. I guess we'll learn some of that tomorrow with Ron Rivera. Hopefully he slips up in his presser. I'm just curious to know who really pulled the trigger on this and who made the call overall. But now you put yourself in a good position if you feel like Sam Howell isn't the guy to have assets to move up if you need to in the first round to go get a quarterback, whether you identify that to be Drake May, Caleb Williams, or Michael Penix. You have 2 second-round picks. You have 2 to 3 third-round picks, and you also still got your first alongside with your future picks for 2025. So if you really feel that you want to be aggressive with your approach and going to get your guy at quarterback, you have all the necessary tools to do so.
And I was just gonna say one last thing on this. That time, I'm just thinking about it more and more. The timing of the hiring of the analytics guy. I guess when we're talking about who signs off on these things, he was just hired last week. They had to anticipate these trades were coming. You wonder now, was he hired officially so he can actually review and approve any final trade packages? So that's what I'm kind of thinking. The more I think about, all of this unfolding, is that timing is really, interesting to me. So he may have got hired just in time because they knew this deadline was coming. And Josh, maybe he's been talking to people outside of this and they're like, hey, this is what you all should do if this is what you're going to do next year. He brings the guy in, he's going to sign off on trades. So they aren't getting hosed in a sense. Like, you have to make it fair and you get someone you trust to review these things. Because again, if Ron Rivera is the GM, he has the final say, but Josh Harris needs somebody on his end that's kind of vetting these things and making sure he's not getting fleeced after Ron Rivera leaves. So maybe that hiring was way more important than we kind of probably initially thought it was.
Yeah, I ain't gonna lie to you. I don't know. As far as I know, and what I heard, like, that guy is like on the football side from like a game day standpoint, right? So I don't know. I'll leave y'all up to speculating on that one. Cause I can't tell you the slightest thing of what that guy does. But GMs are coming in soon, and Greg asks us what GM would we like to see in Ashburn next year. I just wanted to acknowledge your question. Appreciate you checking in. But I ain't gonna lie to you, it's way too early for me. I don't even know if they're gonna do that in-season thing where they try to get an evaluator. Like, they may just wait to the off season to make a move for like any type of GM specifics. But Chase Young. So look, here's this. I'll bring this into the conversation after we initiate this. So after we done with Montez Sweat, like 2 hours later, maybe an hour and a half, maybe an hour, I don't know. We get the news on Chase Young. And the Chase Young move for me was a situation where I'm looking at this team and I'm like, okay, if you're going to commit to something, and I think we all said this. Matter of fact, we said this in the group chat. Damn, there we go. I'm like, if we're gonna commit to this, we might as well trade Chase while you at it with Sweat. We threw some other names in there, and we'll get to the other names that we mentioned after we're done talking about Chase. But we mentioned Chase. We're like, this is just something where I feel like it makes sense to have that clean reset, right? Overall, this is a team where, from a statistical standpoint, you weren't doing shit with nobody on your defense. No matter how good you thought your players were, you were still a bad defense. You were still giving up explosive plays. This year, you can kind of probably put the onus more on the secondary, but at the same time, like your defensive line, like they're probably if it's like 50, it's probably like 51-49 in terms of the split. Like it's that high in terms of the issues that was going on that side of the football. And I think it's actually ironic because Chase Young was probably having his most productive season since his rookie year. And they could only get a 3rd round pick from the San Francisco 49ers. And I think AJ mentioned it was a comp pick. So I'm not upset at the compensation. I kind of understood the situation that they were in. And I do think personally, I would have been okay having him sit here or stay here for another season, right? But also, like, if you're going to commit to a situation where like you're about getting assets for 2024 and moving forward that way, I'll live with that. And then I also live with the fact that you have an FAO body that's still out there on your defense, Casey Toohill, James Smith-Williams. Now, granted, I'm not saying any of those guys are special, right? I'm just saying they're veterans, and you can rely on them in the short term. May not mean nothing or mean much of anything, but at the same time, this Chase Young move was something where it's like, if you can get something out of it that's worth it, move on, and like cut your losses, and go from there. I don't think by any means, like even with all that being said, that Ron is out of the cut or this team is out of the, like, I think it signifies something much more, and that is everything that you did from 2020 up until this point as a evaluator, as a scout, because you're making these decisions in the draft as well, as a NFL scout too, because you're picking these guys in free agency and making these trades or lack of trades or whatever, making all these acquisitions in the offseason, for you to not even have your first ever pick as a Commander or Washington head coach, not even make it a full 4 years for you, that, if anything, signifies the type of time that you had here in Washington. So that's kind of where I'm at. I said a lot, but that's kind of my thoughts on the trade itself. So y'all got the floor.
Yeah, I mean, some people point to the fact that you aren't a highly ranked defense and you're getting killed anyways with these 2 players that you moved on from. But a lot of that also revolves around scheme. That's why I felt like I didn't particularly think that they should move on from these guys until they have their decision makers in hand that feel like they can utilize those guys within a different scheme. But, they decided that they rather have the assets and they rather not allocate over 22 million plus. We'll just use that number as like the franchise tag at minimum. They rather not be in that position. And unfortunately, by the time they took over the team, instead of having to decide about keeping Montez Sweat long-term or being able to play the franchise tag game, they also had Chase Young's option not picked up before they took over officially. So you put them already in a bad situation. It just makes you wonder if they possibly could have got more for these guys even before the season even started. But, I mean, it's over with. They got a second and they got a third. we'll see what they do with the picks and who will be the person making those choices for them at GM. I think that someone has to already kind of be in the fold, or they've identified who they would want to utilize in that space. If you're having hires like a Eugene Sheen already taking place, they have to have some type of inclination of who they want to work with overall. Eugene Sheen is not a GM. He's not going to be the GM. He works with the numbers analytics guy, but you would think that person kind of, gave their voice of approval, their vouch for that hire to take place, especially in an important department such as analytics for owner that really is going to go based off a lot of the numbers that can be provided to him.
Yeah, I mean, and as far as Chase goes, I mean, I know there's a lot of kind of there's kind of a lot of discourse going on. Yeah, yes. There's kind of a lot of discourse going on about Chase. Oh, we shouldn't have traded him. Should we have traded him? Honestly, I was a little shocked that they traded him today. I mean, I did think that they would possibly try to wait to the end of the season, but who knows? Maybe you ruin leverage. I mean, maybe you give the next, regime the chance to make a decision on him, but it just seems like Ron was and his crew, they had a real big disconnect. And now you're seeing like the slander campaign come out, which I hate. I hate when they do that, when they come out.
I was going to add that.
So
pause for 1 second. You got the floor. But this is from Mike Silver. Now, the article is behind the paywall, so I only have his quote. I'm not paying 99 cents for a San Francisco article, chronicle, whatever. But quote unquote, Young, according to several Commanders coaches and other organizational sources, was viewed as an undisciplined player who developed bad habits such as deviating from assignments in an effort to make splash plays, quote unquote. And he put in parentheses ducks for cover because he knew. But you got the floor, Trey.
I'm about to say Mike Silver is Ron's man, so you pretty much know where that's coming from. I mean, that's Ron's camp. That's kind of leaking that stuff, and I feel like that's unnecessary at that point. You don't need to do that. I mean, you traded him for your reasons. Now you're kind of trying to validate it through your friends and the media. Don't like it, but I mean, it did seem kind of inevitable. I'm wondering, maybe they convinced, the ownership group that, this is better for the franchise moving forward if you move this guy because he's not interested or he's disinterested, whatever the case may be. But I mean, they had ownership's blessing to do so. But I was just a little shocked that it happened today. But I mean, at some point, expectations have been lowered for Chase Young. I mean, there was the Rookie of the Year season. Obviously, he came out. He was great. He was off the gates. You think that is him just scratching the surface. Like, there's way more to come of this. Then there was the 2021 season where he was just pretty much just another guy on the field. I mean, I think he had 1.5 sacks that whole year before his injury, which was very disappointing to a lot of us in the fan base. And then he gets the injury, of course. And then I think it's that whole situation last year. Like, I don't know if enough people talk about it, but I do think that they had a disconnect whether Chase was going to play again last
return
year.
timeline.
Yes. I think that was a big disconnect.
Because initially, matter of fact, so at one point they were thinking he was going to come back within the first month of the season.
Right. And that was a conversation. Exactly. That was a conversation. And they almost phrased it or framed it as if we think he could play, but he doesn't want to play. So, they kind of left that ball in the court of it's Chase's side that doesn't want to get on the field. And then, Chase probably felt some type of way. And I think that the relationship was irreparable after that, like irreparable. Because, I mean, Chase came back. He played, 3-4 games, I think, in that season. He didn't play many games, but he came back. And, you weren't expecting much. You had to lower everything for him. And then you got this year. Now, this year was supposed to be the make-or-break year for Chase, but I don't think anything got recovered from last year. And Chase came back. I mean, he looks good, but now the expectations from the fan base has to be lowered from him because he's coming off injury. He hasn't been that same guy since his rookie year. So it's like you have to lower these things. And I'm just talking to people that are like, well, Chase was having this, a really good season. I'm like, yeah, but the expectations are lower for Chase because we didn't draft Chase to have good seasons. Like you drafted Chase to have great seasons. You drafted Chase to be a franchise changer, game record. Chase hasn't been that. He showed flashes of that rookie year, but he has not been that. And at some point, you felt like this was inevitable.
Bruh, imagine you're a head coach imagine, bruh, like I glossed over it, but like imagine you're a head coach saying, yo, we view moving on from Chase Young as an addition by subtraction, bro. Like, that's crazy. You drafted me number 2 overall, and you view me as an addition by subtraction, bro.
That's organizational failure there. That's that's not just a failure on Chase Young's part. That's a failure from the top of everybody involved in that selection.
Yeah, I mean, I think matter of fact, there's validity in what Mike Silver wrote. You feel me? Like, he's a very, very credible individual, and typically his relationships are coming right with the head coach. You feel me? If you look at even how Chase Young pass rushed, or how he was typically in a 2-point stance. Nobody else on the team was in a 2-point stance, and most of their downs. That's not to say that he's necessarily like undisciplined. I think at some point he's just like bump what these coaches kind of talking about. Let me try to do my thing, because at the end of the day, these numbers that I put up have to be productive enough to secure my family, future. I got to make sure I get this bag, and we'll see what it looks like. I mean, to say that there's not going to be a drop off in a sense from having a Montez Sweat and a Chase Young to now whoever's going to be playing outside, Hill, James Smith-Williams, KJ Henry, Andre Jones. I mean, okay, they could be disciplined within the system, but is it going to produce a different result? I think it's malpractice by Ron Rivera holding on to Jack Del Rio being the coordinator for so long, and being loyal to Jack Del Rio so much. I mean, we even see it from an offensive standpoint. He was loyal to Scott Turner to a fault, where now it's a bit too late. We'll never know what, Montez Sweat and Chase Young's full potential could be within this organization. We'll see what they do elsewhere. I don't like Chicago for Sweat, but if the money is right, if the money is right, that's where he'll be. For Chase, I feel like he's on a 1-year rental, not even a 1 year. He's on the rest of the season rental with San Francisco, and if he can put up high productive numbers and stay healthy, he can get a bag from another team in the NFL overall. Shoot, what if, I'm just throwing it out there hypothetically, what if both of those guys don't re-sign and don't get tagged, and you bring one of them back and you got capital for them? I don't know. Like, that's just something you got to think about, because it's reality. Like, none of these things are guaranteed as far as them getting extensions or getting a tag within the new organizations that they're with. But, we'll see how those guys look within this disciplined defense.
Well, I mean, I think it's important to note, though, like, well, actually, you know what? To add to your point, and because I'll rephrase it, I do think that the team and the defense thinks that, they'll have some form of stability up front, right? But also, like, what does that look like? What does that mean? Do you get a drastic improvement? I don't think you really do get a drastic improvement. There was moments throughout the season last year before Chase got back where this defense was getting gashed, and they were getting diced up front. They were getting beaten in the secondary, and that included some of the same players that they have this year, right? Excluding the rookies. So to that point, it's like, if you, first of all, it don't even matter, because the whole point of even trading these guys was to do this thing for the future. Like, you need your assets, your draft capital to do, whether it is. I don't even think that those picks are like, I told you how I felt about the roster last show. I felt like I can keep around 15 people that I would bring into the new regime guaranteed, right? So in that theory, and how I believe and how I feel about this team, you're using these draft picks. Like, what they have 3 in the top 50, which is really good. I'm using these draft picks. Like, I'm not giving up 2 or maybe even 3 of them for one player. I need all 3 of these things for these guys, man. And depending on how that free agency go, I may need to go offensive line in the draft. I may need to go edge rusher. I may need to go cornerback. I don't know. Like, I may need to go linebacker again. But to that point, it may me even bringing that up, like, I don't know if this regime even thinks that they're going to like drastically get better. I think that what they're going to do and what they're doing is more about like trying to look out for themselves. But I don't think they know that it's not going to get better, if that makes sense. I really don't think they have the awareness of realizing that it's not all on the players. And that's where I was giving credit to AJ. Like, I do think the scheme could have been a little bit better in terms of how they moved around players. That's the only thing I think that could have been different. Outside of that, you're still talking about a guy in Chase Young who in Montez Sweat who were under promising from a standpoint. Specifically, Chase. Like, it is what it is. But that's the only thing I think of in terms of like how the scheme could have been different is like moving them around on the defensive line. But I don't think they realize it's not going to get that much better.
But see, my issue with the scheme argument, and I agree, there's probably some schematic issues. I mean, there's probably things that Jack Del Rio could do better with those particular guys. I think my issue is more with the scheme as a whole and how he relies on that front four so much to do more, instead of like sending more guys. But this was the same scheme that Chase Young won Defensive Rookie of the Year in. This is the same scheme that John Allen has went to multiple Pro Bowls in. The same scheme that Daron Payne has had 11 and a half sacks from an interior rushing position in. And then Montez Sweat is the same scheme that just got you a second-round pick for the guy. So, I mean, like, when it's going good, we don't talk about the scheme. Like, when it's going good individually for these guys. But then when you look at the whole and say, hey, it's not bringing the results in the production, it's like, oh, it must just be the scheme. No, maybe, like, and we talk about this too. When we play against teams, no matter who we play against, the announcers are going to point out we have four first-round picks on this defensive line. Yes, that's a big thing every time we play. They talk about this is a big thing. But when you watch these games, they're not dominating teams collectively as a whole. Now, I don't want to sit there and say it's all scheme. It could be some scheme. But at the same time, guys have to win their matchups in front of them, or whatever it is that they're asked to do in the scheme. As good as these guys are, talented as these guys are supposed to be, how are they not adhering to what they're been asked to do in the scheme? You know what I mean? Like I said, it's good. Like, no one has an issue with the scheme when these guys are individually doing great. But then when you're talking about the disappointments you have in these guys, it comes back to, oh, it must be the scheme. But again, I'm not absolving the scheme. It could be that, but I don't want to absolve the players because I do think it's probably a good combination of both.
So yeah, PC asked me only 15. In case you missed it out, we asked the question last podcast, not the post game, but maybe I think last Tuesday. Just who would you guarantee that you bring onto the new regime? And you mentioned Khalid Hudson, PC. I mentioned some people that were backups that can be reserve role, but also like a few starters. It wasn't a lot. I ain't gonna go through the whole list, but just to save us some time. But that's kind of where I was. It's not a lot of people that I would guarantee that can be impactful. So there can be a roster shakeup. I'm not gonna say rebuild. You can just retool it. Like figure out where to move some people, cut some people, bring some other people in. Like it's gonna be a whole new setups. Defensively, it's gonna be a new scheme. And offensively, if the enemy ain't around, it's gonna be a new scheme too. So like there's gonna be turnover from a philosophical standpoint. And how people like dress this team up. So you gotta take that into account too.
Oh yeah, I definitely think that a lot of the faces you saying now will not be around next year. Even guys that were drafted this year may not be around next year. Because I'm not quite sure how Andre Jones or KJ Henry typically fit within if you're gonna be running a 4-3 defense, how they really fit within that. Like they don't bring anything extra to the table. It's a great job for whoever's going to come in here and be GM. They got draft capital. They got $90 million plus to use, and build up their team exactly how they want to alongside their head coach.
All right, so let's close out with just a couple more players now that we done got Sweat and Young out the way. Everybody in the chat. First off, two questions. are y'all okay with what happened with Young and Sweat? Whether it's like the actual compensation or them being gone, are y'all okay with that? And then the second question, which I'm asking to you all, AJ and Dre, are we surprised that more people wasn't moved? And I'm gonna start with two big names, John Allen and Antonio Gibson. We know that Jacoby Brissett's name was moved around and actually reportedly to have like legitimate talks with a couple teams, but Washington wasn't getting the conversation that they were looking for from the Browns or the Vikings. So yeah, let's go there, AJ and Dre. Were you all surprised that more people weren't moved before the deadline?
What was the first question, Mo? I know you
Oh,
had
no,
a question before.
that was to the chat,
Oh.
like if they were okay with the deal, the Young and Sweat deals. But the question to you all is, are you all surprised that there wasn't more done before the deadline?
No, honestly, I wasn't surprised because we just kept chasing Montez's name so much, and I guess with their impending contract situations, it probably made more sense with those guys. But when when it came out with reports that they weren't going to trade or listen to discussions about John Allen, I was like, okay, so it's not like a full fire sale, because to be honest with you, and I texted you all in the group chat as well, if I'm trading Montez and Chase, I would have traded John Allen too. I mean, why not? You just, if you're going to have a fire sale, might as well go all in, just get as many assets as you can. But yeah, I mean, so I wasn't surprised that they didn't do more, although personally I wanted more. Like I was ready, like even like you said, Jacoby Brissett, I was ready. I was even talking Kendall Fuller. I mean, just look at the vets that you can, the guys that are getting up there in age a little bit. If you can get any value for them, especially a guy like Kendall Fuller, who's been having a pretty damn good season, you got to think someone's probably inquired about him. Cam Curl, I don't know how much he's valued around the league. I thought he could have been a name that wouldn't have been too surprising if he came up in trade talks today, but we didn't see Cam Curl's name in anything but some tweets, and that's what him reacting to all of the news today, and he looked upset about it. But yeah, I wasn't shocked too much, because this team is kind of predictable, and they kind of telegraph what they're doing, and they have been telegraphing this whole Chase and Montez thing for like a week now, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think I would have wanted to see them move Jonathan Allen. Like I told you guys in the chat, no guarantee money next year. Maybe we still even see it in the offseason. I just think that, whatever they're doing, whoever's doing it, is trying to build up as much asset as possible to add talent to this team. And that could be in multiple cases position-wise, or that could just be for the quarterback. We've seen how much it took the Carolina Panthers to move up to number one to go get a Bryce Young. It just really boils down to who's going to have that first overall pick. But they definitely got some ammo to work with as far as draft capital, and they still got a couple assets that they can utilize that are under contract if they need to, go up and go get a guy. That could be Terry McLaurin, that could be Jonathan Allen. I doubt Deron Payne, but those two guys could be some pieces that they could still move. I think more so it would be Jonathan Allen, but kudos to them for realizing now that they didn't want to move forward with this, being on their plate and getting some assets now instead of waiting until next offseason, and losing those guys pretty much for free.
Am I surprised? Maybe I am. Like I'm thinking, like really, I'm thinking really deeply about this. I think I am surprised. I feel like the first of all, the defensive ends, and who was it? Jay Tyler mentioned it to an extent. He said Chase was a culture reset, but I do think the defensive ends being moved, I think that was more so like also like a bed that they laid and they made their bed. And that was a decision by not franchising. No, Will Chase Young. I mean, excuse me. Not franchising Chase. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Not franchise. No, because he was in his 4th year. Sweat was in his 5th year. So, not offering an extension to either one of them in this year because they were on their last years of their deal. So you couldn't franchise these guys. So that was that. Not offering an extension to Montez Sweat last year before 2023. I think that was like something that they just weren't. You know, you're just capturing what you can at this point, right? But then I think about like other pieces that can really net you something, and I think Dre, you kind of alluded to it. You know, you weren't surprised, but like if you're gonna go all in, do it. I'm like Allen can net you something, but it's something that I didn't think about what AJ just brought up. Maybe they're not done yet. And maybe they wait until free agency or the draft to use some more pieces to move around. But I do know one thing: Gibson is on the last year of his deal, so he's either staying or going. Odds are he's going. Jacoby is on a 2-year deal or a 1-year deal.
1 year.
1 year deal. All right, so he's gone. And Cam Curl. Nothing, but I can imagine Washington is probably going to try to keep Cam Curl around. That probably I wouldn't even expect him to trade. I think my main thing was probably John Allen, Antonio Gibson at this point. You got Chris Rodriguez waiting in the rings. Who's the other guy? He's a practice squad.
Free agents is Kendall. Before the trade happened, it was Sweat, it was Kendall Fuller. It was Curtis Samuels, Cam Curl, James Smith-Williams, Casey Toohill, Antonio Gibson. Who else? I'm trying to remember.
I was speaking about
and you're going to be moving off from Charles Leno, so that's a guarantee.
Leno's a free agent too?
He's not a free agent, but you're going to get rid of that contract.
You might. Odds are you will. Yeah, I ain't lying. But they're gonna try and upgrade left tackle. They're probably gonna try and upgrade every single piece that's not named Sam Cosmi. I don't even know what they're gonna do. But it's so crazy. I don't know what they're gonna do with Stromberg. Matter of fact, Stromberg was supposed to have MRI yesterday. Like he got hurt in the Philly game, and he's looking at the MRI. So who knows how serious whatever injury is going on? I don't even know. But whatever injury he got, like we don't even know how serious it is right now. He may be on IR. So it's like, what are you doing with everybody here? I don't know. Like, you just know that a lot of people have an opportunity to make money elsewhere. Some may stick around if they know like their value ain't where it is moving like on the market. They may stick around for a new regime. Who knows if it makes sense for them.
Someone said Logan Thomas. He's definitely gonna be moved on. It's gonna be Logan. It's gonna be a whole new team next year. Like not necessarily a rebuild, but you're gonna see. How I envision it, you're gonna see a good mixture of veterans and youth. Whereas with Ron so far, it's been pretty much just youth. It hasn't been a mixture of veterans. It's just
you think quote unquote development, which I ain't anybody go down that road. But yes, I agree with you, AJ. I 100% agree. That's kind of how I look, man. But I say all that to say because I was like kind of lingering on throughout the thing. It's going to be a whole bunch of turnover, but I thought personally that you would take advantage of something like that and like move some of your bigger pieces to see how much capital you could get for a draft in 2024. And that's kind of where I was different. But there is something that I thought about. Now I think about it. And I give credit to JP Finley because he was the first one I heard bring it up, but it made sense, right? Washington received offers on Jonathan Allen after he made his famous, I'm sick of this shit, man. I'm tired of all it. Like, people started calling Washington about Jonathan Allen. And they started telling those teams, that they weren't interested in trading John Allen. Yesterday, Leonard Williams goes to Seattle. That easily could have been one of the teams looking into Jonathan Allen after they didn't heard what he said post-game about him being sick and tired of this shit. It's been 7 years. I say that to say they clearly at that point they clearly have gotten offers on Jonathan Allen, and I think from that extent and that viewpoint, like there could have been an offer out there that you could entertain, just like you entertained with Sweat and just like you entertained with Young, where you could have capitalized on that. So I guess that wraps up everything. Am I surprised? I am a little bit surprised. Jonathan Allen has been here for 7 years, and this defense hasn't been good like one time. Statistically, you'll look at it and say, well, you could point to 2020 and you could point to 2022, but a good defense is a defense with a structure, with a philosophy, and they execute it to a T. And they haven't been able to do that in the 7 years that John Allen's been here. So that's where I'm like, I would have thought that you would have moved on from John Allen and or Antonio Gibson.
Well, I'll say this in that maybe they're leaving some of these decisions up for whoever comes into charge. Maybe they felt like they had to kind of, I don't know, maybe it was an imminent thing with Chase and Montez. Like Chase probably wanted out of here. I mean, I don't know. I've been hearing kind of rumors that he kind of wanted to trade before the season. Remember, we saw a lot of those rumors.
Chase?
Yeah, Chase. We kind of saw a lot of those rumors before the season that, he could possibly be traded. Maybe Montez wanted the same, but I'm thinking in terms of guys like John Allen now and, not Cam Curl because he's under contract, but any guys like John Allen, it's a couple of other guys I'm sure that may have a little bit of value, but there's going to be a lot of trade interest in the offseason as well, especially before the draft. Like, you can generate a lot of trade interest for these guys. Maybe they'll leave some of those decisions for the next, crew and just basically say, hey, we're not going to just go heavy, at the trade deadline and trade everybody because, it's almost like you're doing a rebuild within the season. So maybe they didn't want to do that. Maybe the Chase thing just felt more imminent. But, I mean, I like you said, Mo, I do not discount that they're done. Like, just because the trade deadline is here does not mean that they are done, like, retooling and getting rid of some of these guys for draft capital, that is. Like I said, you can trade John in the offseason and get some draft capital, especially before the draft.
Yeah, I think Jonathan Allen is worth a first-round pick. Like, if you go into next year in the offseason, I definitely believe he's worth a first-round pick. You got to look at the talent pool that's coming out in 2024 at these positions too. When you make those type of statements, it's not really a big-time D tackle class. So with Jonathan Allen, we'll see how it plays out. It's a big-time thing that he doesn't have guaranteed money going into next year. So will they fork over that money? A lot of people, even in the chat, are saying Jonathan Allen's a leader. Yeah, maybe to y'all in the public eye, but within that locker room,
I was going to ask. I was waiting for my moment. Like, what? I don't know.
Yeah,
like,
within that
locker
locker
leader
room,
look like?
The main guys is Chase Young and Montez Sweat. If we just keeping it a buck, but a lot of people know that they're not.
I don't know about John Allen,
but Jonathan Allen is not the leader of the team or the defense. It may look like that to the public eye, but that's not necessarily the case with how things rock within the locker room. But that's not to say he's a bad guy or people don't like him, but he's just not. He's not one of those guys. For me, man, I don't truly believe Washington will win another game for the season, so they should be in the top 10.
They're going to win something else.
Huh?
They're going to win something.
They're going to win something else. They may be in the top 10.
Yeah, they may win something. But they're going to win something else.
I'm just speaking for me. I don't see it. I'm just more so excited for the opportunity of who they're going to hire as their general manager, then head coach, and then identifying from there if they're going to go and get a quarterback because this is a deep quarterback pool. And I think this will send a new tone to the organization, like the fan base, and get them back excited. And you already have pieces that you could truly build around. I think that we'll also see, another wide receiver in here, maybe just as or better than Terry McLaurin. That's all I'm looking forward to, man, is how this team is going to be rebuilt. For the rest of the season, I could care less, man. I don't need to hear nothing about Ron Rivera, whatever. Of course, we're going to continue to be here with Trap and Dive podcast. But I know we're ahead of seeing some even worse defense being played.
Now, what's I was gonna say the funny thing about this show, this was supposed to be the game recap show, and we're talking about trades the whole show, which is
Yeah, I just want you to know, I completely, I got that joke. Yeah, I threw that whole thing away. I said I got the.
Hey, I love it.
Analysis from Let Maul tell its Twitter page. Go check it out of him breaking down plays and different things. Because I mean, I even got to stop myself. I got to stop engaging with some people within the space world, all of that, because all the stuff is just getting annoying, man. Like I just want people to just look at the game, and if they don't get a chance to have the tools at their home or office, whatever, tap into guys like Maul and his account, and you can see the film, man. There's definitely some holes still on the team, and especially at quarterback that someone's going to be addressing. It won't be any of us on this panel, but someone's going to be addressing those those needs alongside with now the holes at pass rusher on this defense.
Hey, I love it. Like I said, I'd much rather talk about trees than this bullshit of a season that we've been going through.
I ain't gonna lie to you, bro. Somebody was talking to me about the defense. Matter of fact, the last 2 weeks, bro. And I was like, bro, I ain't telling this. I just said in my head, I said, bro, I ain't spending no time looking at them boys when all I'm focused on is if How's gonna do, if How's gonna improve and what Bieniemy, what he's looking like, and Jahan Dotson. Like, I don't care about nothing else except for them three. Like, matter of fact, Charles Leno too, just so I can keep my narrative alive that he's. I mean, it's not a fake narrative. I believe it, but he's not some shit. And like, I got a few things that I'm going for on offense. I'm like, you know what? That's what I'm locked in on. I don't care about your defense. Now, granted, if you tune into the film sessions, I appreciate it. I do have a film session coming out this week. What's today? Tuesday. Maybe at this point, maybe Friday morning, if not late Thursday. So we'll have some things on the offense. Especially if you aren't on Twitter, we'll have something on the offense on the YouTube channel. But yeah, bro, like I ain't got time for that. Like I know what type of season this is. Just being honest. But we're gonna be here every single day, every single show. Excuse me, Tuesday, Thursday, Sundays. But yeah, man, it's all about Sam Howell, Bieniemy, and yeah, bro. I don't know. I think we're good. Are we? Go ahead, AJ.
Let me actually ask this question before we get up out of here. So we feel the way that we feel, right? Do we think that Eric Bieniemy, I think that they're going to lose Sunday against the Patriots. Now that the trades are out of the way, two of your keystone players overall have been moved. Do we think that after Sunday that this same organization that possibly made the trades or whatever could move on from Ron Rivera after Sunday's potential loss and give Eric Bieniemy the opportunity to show what he could do?
Or do I think it's on the table.
Ron rock it out for the rest of the year?
I mean, I lean more towards they will let Ron rock it out for the rest of the season, but I think anything's on the table at this point. When you start being sellers at the trade deadline, you shouldn't be shocked by anything that comes after that. You shouldn't be shocked that the head coach is fired or whatever the case may be. But I still lean towards more that he will be fired towards the end of the season, because the question is, who steps in his place interim? I still don't know if EB is ready for that spot. I mean, EB, we're still weekly having these issues with, he's a first-time play caller. We got to give him a little bit of time. And then he has a great game, called game this last game. That's fine. But now EB has to string together some consistency. But with that said, I don't know if we are ready to kind of catapult his responsibilities when he's still kind of juggling and struggling with the one task that he has right now. So the funny thing is, AJ, I don't think that EB will be the interim. I think your boy Jack Del Rio will probably be the interim if they go that route of firing Ron, which is why I lean more towards that he will probably just end up finishing the year out and they fire him after the season.
Yeah. Like you gave two options, AJ. Fired after this season. Fired after this season or fired after the Patriots game. I still think, he don't have to get fired. It don't have to be either one of those two options. He can still get fired like after the bye week or after the Cowboys game. Like, those are plenty of times to insert a new interim, whether it's because the Thanksgiving game against the Cowboys gives you like a 10-day turnaround. So you got plenty of time to make some things shake then. And then the bye week, obviously, as we know, is 13 days. So yeah, they got options. And honestly, at this point, the way it goes, in terms of like the losing streaks and the fact that they are losing these games, and you got New England and Seattle up next, and you may end up losing 4 out of your next 5, with the Giants being a possibility that you win. It's always 50-50 with the Giants, even though they always win that 50-50 matchup. It's still 50-50. They're not a good team, or not that good of a team. Yeah, that can definitely encourage ownership to be like, all right, man, you did your job. You secured us a top 10 pick. You can hit the dough. It could be that simple, bro.
The checkout sheet. I told you already. Ron got a checkout sheet. His first 2 orders of business before he leaves out the door: trade Chase Young and Montez.
I hope Ron hits me up when it's time for him to move. I don't mind helping him pack his bags to head back to Charlotte.
Well, that's the second to last step on his checkout sheet is packing his bags. The last step is giving up the key.
I mean, tomorrow when we come back Thursday, we're gonna learn a lot from this presser tomorrow. We're going to
and Jack on Thursday.
That's right, Jack on Thursday.
We're going
he ain't
to
gonna say much, but
because to me, in my opinion, it's like you actually there's conflicting issues there, right? You actually think that Chase and Montez are important to what you want to do defensively. That's why you went and used your first and your second round pick on defensive backs. So what happened? I definitely don't think it was a Ron Rivera decision to trade Chase Young and Montez, because I feel like that would have happened before we even got to this point of the season. It probably would have happened in March or sometime around the combine. I don't believe that it was his call, because we all know he doesn't move on from guys. He wouldn't even move on from Cheeseman, the long snapper. He wouldn't move on from Dax, the kick returner, punt returner, whatever you want to call him, sometimes wide receiver. And now Jamison Crowder got a damn touchdown. Jamison Crowder got – hold on. Did he score on that punt return?
7 for 95.
No,
study, bro.
He didn't score.
He didn't score. Yeah, not against the Falcons.
He probably got more touchdowns than Dax got in his whole career being here. Like, it's insane. But, I mean, we'll learn a lot tomorrow. Whatever the time of that presser is, I'm definitely going to be tuned in and to see how he fumbles with his words. And I think and I hope someone puts some pressure on him to where he starts getting frustrated and he starts saying more than what he needs to. So we can get understanding of who's running the show here, because I mean there's a couple things that I've heard and I've had discussion with someone that it may not necessarily be Josh Harris making a lot of these calls on the day-to-day. So
Dax, you made me look up the Crowder thing, bro. Dax Mill got 15 catches for 120 yards. That man in 2 years. And Jamison Crowder got 9 catches for 116 in like 8 games.
And a touchdown.
and a touchdown, bro.
And Crowder actually just started playing more on offense. He wasn't playing on offense earlier in the season, so he's getting more snaps now.
You know who I think he's phasing out too, bro? I might be wrong. This is
Dami.
Yep.
Oh, that's why Dami tweeted what he did. He know what's up. I want to say Dami a free agent next year.
Yeah, he was a 2020 rookie.
Oh yeah, he know what's up.
No, he was a 2021 rookie.
Can we ask what the guy in the chat Tyrannus is? Who is he referring to as Snyder 2.0?
Where? Oh, I'm not sure. He may be talking about
that's a hell of a name, by the way. But shout out to you,
Tyrannus. Yeah, Tyrannus, man, or Tyrannus. I don't know, bro. But yeah,
I don't know. You keep trying to figure out what it is. You may say the wrong word, bro. Be careful.
How about tyrant?
Tyrannus.
Harris isn't Snyder 2.0, but what a lot of fans got to understand is, man, these owners have their hands involved in their organizations. If you don't believe that, then something's wrong with you. Like, if you look across the league, these owners sign off on these picks. They sign off on these free agent acquisitions. They sign off on a lot of things. Like, so that's where I kind of push back on the whole Snyder thing at some aspect. I mean, you even look in Carolina, like you hear the rumblings about David Tepper going on.
But I'm trying to figure out where is this coming from, this Snyder 2.0. Like you said,
Don't
AJ,
even.
I was gonna say every owner meddles. The issue with Snyder meddling was that we had 25 years of evidence that he wasn't good at it. So you wanted him to stop after a while and let someone that knows more than him do the job, you know?
Hey, I'm gonna send y'all privately the link, but even for those out there tuning in, you want to get a good idea of like ownership, GM, and head coach dynamics, especially during the draft. Go check out the behind the scenes of the Detroit Lions in their process of like drafting this year, how they went in, you know, got a Jameer Gibbs, Campbell, Laporta. Yeah, you get to see the Ford ownership, Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. But yeah, man, I think that's what we gotta look forward to as Washington fans is what's to come next year. Could it be not just only a retooling of the roster, but a rebrand? May not even be the Commanders next year.
We will see.
Way Washington to me, man. I'm just gonna call it
Washington. That's true. I still call them Skins, bro.
They about to be the Tyson Corner Commanders.
Oh Lord Jesus. That's it for us, man. Hey, appreciate everybody who tapped in, bro. But I ain't gonna lie to you. I don't see like because Jay Tyler mentioned Diambi going to get traded in the offseason. If Diambi going to get traded, but listen though, I'm about to say if Diambi going to get traded in the offseason, first off, how the hell Antonio Gibson going to be viewed as small value, or Chase Young going to be viewed as like little value, and they're going to find a trade offer, a trade partner for Diambi?
There will never be a market for Diambi Brown.
I don't get that one. They can keep him on the roster or just cut him. Like
you can find Diambi Brown at Howard University playing right now.
Put him on 6th string, bro. Have him be a special teams demon, bro. But yeah, that's gonna wrap it up for us. We'll be back Thursday. What we got? Patriots. Okay, so we can spin the block on the offense and kind of dive in on Sam Howell and Bieniemy and things like that on Thursday. So it was a trade deadline day. We had a lot of news, man. First time in a long time. So y'all take it easy. Y'all enjoy y'all evening, all that good stuff. Appreciate everybody who tapped in, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We appreciate that. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up. Peace.